'Cause I'd still pick you in the checkout line when the coupons fail and the card declines, when the kids are screaming and the car won't steer, and I'm one small inconvenience from a breakdown in here. Yeah, I'd still pick you. You're my steady north, my Jedi in my court.
Hey everybody, this is Life with Tim and Jenna.
Yes. Oh gosh, this is always, we never know what's going to happen on here. But if you guys joined us last week, we talked a little bit about how to fight and win, how to have productive
Fight productively.
arguments in your marriage.
Yeah,
Not
both
just,
of you can walk away winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we've got another hot topic for you guys. We're so excited to talk about this subject. The subject is really one of our favorite subjects, but more than that, the topic that we're going to talk about within that subject is probably one of the most sought after, most searched.
Yeah, it's definitely the most searched, and it's definitely 100% the most, the biggest problem couples bring into our office when it comes to
sex.
Sex.
We're talking about sex today. The number one sex problem.
Yeah.
And it is just when one of you wants sex more than the other one.
Yeah, let's pause for a second. Everyone who is married can relate. Almost everyone can relate. Yeah, there's always someone that wants sex, has a higher sex drive, and another one that maybe doesn't necessarily run from sex, but isn't always up for it or excited about it. It takes a little longer to warm up to the idea of sex. And so, we're going to talk about that today, and let's break it down and see what we can come up with for solutions.
Yeah. And so one thing we want you guys to know is if your marriage is going through that, it doesn't mean that your marriage is broken, dysfunctional. It doesn't mean that one of you is dysfunctional and the other one is normal.
Yeah.
I would imagine that most couples, both of you in some form or fashion, feel like your sex drive is a little abnormal.
Yeah, that's usually the question is what's wrong with me? One of the most asked questions on the internet is how frequent should a couple have sex every week? It's this wondering, are we doing this right? Is this okay? Am I meeting the need? Am I whatever? You finished the question. And it seems to be a running thought in many, many couples of what is sex? How is it going? Is it going well? Yeah. And can it be something that needs to be better? Yeah,
absolutely. And really there's no right or wrong answer to a number of times, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody's about. How much is too much? How much is too little?
It really depends on the couple. There really isn't, like you said, there's no right or wrong answer there. There's going to be some couples who enjoy and do really well with sex every day. And that is their norm, and they're excited and they love it, and that's the way they do things. And then there's going to be couples that their normal frequency is maybe once a week, twice a week, give or take, right? And I think that we have to focus more on the quality of the relationship than we do the quantity of sex every week.
Yeah. So let's talk about some reasons why one person's sex drive might be more than the other person's. And it's often can be situational, right? So it could be that at one point, one of you has a higher sex drive, and then at a different point, the other one has a higher sex drive.
Yeah.
So many things that go into that. One of those things is just stress. Life is stressful. It's got a lot going on. There are schedules to keep, kids to get places, work, all kinds of things that are demanding and needing your time and your effort and your energy and your thoughts. And so all that stuff adds up to stress that can honestly kill sex drive.
Yeah, definitely can kill the mood for many people. And also, for some, stress can be a driving factor for a sex drive. It's that need to relieve stress. Yeah. Often sex becomes that almost medicinal in a way. And so that can be really frustrating if one partner gets stressed and shuts down, and the other partner gets really stressed and their sex drive revs up because they need that relief, right? And so that can be hard. Okay, so let me pause real quick. Counselors, clinicians will call this desire discrepancy. So if you hear that throughout the video, that's what we mean, is a gap in the desire between couples. So desire discrepancy. Yeah. And so, stress can definitely have a part to play in that. Also, physical pain. pain causes problems. If there's been an injury, if there's been some kind of trauma to your body. I know that there was a case that I studied once. This couple was really struggling, and it came finally. They finally figured out after a way too long, in my opinion, that he had a fracture in his hip bone during a car accident like the year previous, and it never healed completely. So it was incredibly painful. They could never finish, and they were both super frustrated with each other and with their sex life. It's so hard. So if you're feeling physical pain, we got to dig down a little bit. Let's see what's causing that pain. I know for postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, a lot of times after a woman has a baby, there's a disorder called vaginitis where it causes the vaginal muscles to become really tight and restricted and dry, and it causes pain, excruciating pain for sex, and it can feel abusive when your husband is demanding or asking for sex when it's so painful. And so, yes, there's going to be desire discrepancy when there's pain, whether from him or from her.
Yeah. Trauma plays a huge part too. It could be that you've had sexual trauma at some point in your life, whatever that looks like, molestation, rape, a whole lot of different things that can play into that. Even just like the physical pain could bring in trauma because your body's just made differently, or there were just complications at some point. And so that can make you feel really afraid to have sex because there's pain associated with it. And so that can affect sex drive. Comparison. Oh my gosh, how much does comparison play into whether you're worried about, am I going to meet that person's expectations because they're past, they've had a lot of sexual partners, or maybe you come into it coming from a background of pornography, is it going to be the same as that? Or,
It's
so many things that can add to
all
that.
involved, whether it's in the past or in your present. That comparison factor plays a huge role. And so definitely something for you to consider. If there's pornography involved at all, it's better to walk away for the safety and the health of your marriage, to remove that from your relationship.
Yeah, and fear. I mean, just wondering if you're going to be able to do this well, right? I don't think anybody walks into their wedding night and feels 100% confident that they've got this figured out. Even if there's been past experience, it still comes into of like, man, I just want this to work well. I want my marriage to be healthy sexually. And so there's a lot of pressure that we just put on ourselves just from wanting to have a great sex life.
Yeah.
We can't forget about just the normal practical things of kids and life, right?
Yeah.
Never fails, never fails. We're trying to be intimate and somebody is knocking on our door. It doesn't matter what time of day. It could be 2 a.m. in the morning.
Someone,
and somebody's internal alarm goes off because mom and I are trying to get busy, right? It's crazy how many times we could be alone for 5 hours and nobody shows up until the clothes come off. And then there's the knock on the door.
Yes, it is interesting how kids have that, like, I don't know, some kind of, what do they call that when the waves?
Telepathy.
Yes.
Telepathy.
Yes.
Good pro tip here. Make sure your door's locked. Otherwise,
You might
that
have
knock on the door could be much worse, right?
Yes, we've had that. We've had a child walk in on us on Christmas morning.
Yes.
A moment they will never forget.
For the
Merry
sake of
Christmas.
protecting their identities, we won't go into who it was. But
Yes,
good thing is we got a bunch of kids, so you just
we do.
hardly
We have
even know
lots
who
of
it is.
children.
And then the last one is just sometimes we come in thinking that God has a specific plan for sex. And while I think there are some things that God says this isn't okay, I think there's an awful lot of things God is like, have fun, enjoy. I created you. I created sex for you as an enjoyment, as a gift. And so
sex is for pleasure. God created
Yes.
us. In fact, I think it's not talked about enough that women have literally a part of their body that was created only for sexual pleasure and nothing else. And so if God designed us this way, why should we not be running after it and learning what that means for our marriage and for our relationship and how we can grow in that area? I don't think God frowns on it at all.
on a different level, just kind of everybody's makeup. Usually one person in the relationship is spontaneous, the other person is a little bit more responsive, meaning that they're great if the other person initiates it. But how often do couples have that conversation of like, I wish you would initiate more. I don't want to always have to initiate it. And it kind of goes into some of the things that we talked about, or we're going to talk about in a minute, about shame and different things like that. But just that how we're made up. And if you look at everything else in your relationship, usually one is more spontaneous, like, hey, let's go take a trip, let's go out to eat, where the other one is more conservative, more reserved, like, well, we've got a budget, things like that. And so
personality definitely plays a role there. But you're right. In most couples, there's one that's like, let's do this, more spontaneous, let's have fun. And it's, especially with regard to sex, there's often one spouse that it's not that they don't want to have sex, but they need some kind of engagement. Emotional connection is a big one, but some kind of engagement to get that sex drive going. And, 8 times out of 10, they join you, right? The sex drive will match yours, but it's not always the initiator.
Yeah. So here are some ways that different sex drives within your relationship could potentially harm your relationship, or really just drive a wedge in it. It's not really harm, but it causes breakdown in communication, because we're not talking about the things that are going on inside of us. But for the person who has the higher level of sex drive, they can often feel rejected because they're pursuing their spouse, they're trying to initiate things, and the spouse is like, no, I'm not interested. And that can feel so many different ways.
Yeah, the question is, or the statement is often, they don't want me. I had a client at one point say 19 times out of 20, she says no. So I stopped asking. And it's devastating, the tears and the hurt and the heartbreak that comes with not feeling wanted is devastating.
Yeah. I know early on in our marriage, and we're going to use our marriage as an example, you definitely had a higher sex drive than I did. And we can talk about that a little bit more. My history of pornography played a lot into that. But you felt like, rejections. I guess
crazy.
Rejected.
Yeah, the world says that all that men think about is sex. Yeah. And so when coming into the marriage with Tim, I just had this full expectation that we would have this thriving, amazing sex life. Yeah. And very quickly, we realized that I had a much higher sex drive, and Tim really did it difficult for him to even get into the mood, to be responsive for a sex drive. And so for me, I felt like something must be wrong with me. And I knew that he had a porn, addiction in the past before we got married. So there was a lot of comparison that came in, a lot of shame on my part, not knowing what was wrong with me. Am I broken? And then that settled into resentment and bitterness. I was angry because I felt like I had signed up for something that I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah, which really all that stuff led up to you feeling very alone in our marriage. Yeah,
I was lonely.
I remember in the first, 3 years, you started talking about, we just feel like roommates at that point. And so, man, if we're not able to have a dialogue, have a conversation about different sex drives, it can get us to that point where we start looking outside of our marriage for something better or something different, right?
Yeah.
And it's really not that something outside is better. We just aren't having the conversations to meet in the middle. And so likewise, the person with a lower sex drive can feel a lot of different things as well. And it's interesting, if you really look at these things, they're very similar in nature. So for example, the pressure from the person who's always saying no, of like, I just gotta get together. I just gotta sacrifice, and for lack of better way to put it, I've got to lay there and take it, right? I don't know how else to paint that picture, but yeah, I just gotta make it happen. I just gotta get through it, right? Just to satisfy my spouse. I need to just get through it. So there's feeling guilty.
Yeah. Feeling guilty, feeling pressured, feeling shame, something's wrong with me. Again, it can go for either partner. That can be a huge deal, especially if the person who is feeling rejected, because we react out of our emotions many times, the words that come from that can sound like, it can feel shaming. Something's wrong with you. What you need to go get help. I hear that a lot. You need to go fix that. that. You need to get help for that.
Yep.
And that can come across really shaming and demeaning, degrading.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's not necessarily that the higher drive is the more dominant. Sometimes the lower drive is more dominant. And they're like, well, there's something wrong with you. You shouldn't be wanting it that much. And it pushes that shame in. And often both individuals can feel like there is something wrong. What's wrong with me? Why do I not want it enough? Why do I want it so much? And so having dialogue, having conversation is where we begin to remove that wedge and start to meet each other, which is really, I think, part of the point of sex. Part of the reason why God gave us sex as a beautiful gift is to get to know our spouse.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump into some of these ways that we can start to overcome this difference in sex drive? And it's not like how can we make the other person or make myself have a different sex drive. It's really how can we meet in the middle with where we're at and who we are and begin to serve each other in our sex drive.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, communication, like you said. Second, if you haven't had sex in a while, if you feel like your sex is lacking, you may need to up the nurture and up the non-sexual touch in your relationship. When was the last time you just held hands? When was the last time you cuddled? When was the last time you spent some time sitting closely together on the couch or on the same side of the booth at a dinner table, right? At a restaurant. Finding ways to have that closeness, that physical touch can really, really help with drawing you closer to opening that door for sex eventually. That way you're not walking in and expecting it to happen, but you can slowly bring life back to your sex, your sexual relationship and your intimacy by starting with non-sexual touch. And also, I think it's important. I had a client a couple years ago who struggled with, she came in, the couple came in, and she said, he always wants to touch me. And I couldn't help but laugh a little bit. And so we had to do some peeling back some layers. And finally, we discovered that her husband was really trying to love on her and was trying to, handle her gently. And so the way that he would touch her was very soft and feathery. So he would rub her shoulder, but it was very feathery and soft touch. Or he would feathery touch her hair or whatever that looked like. And what we found out and discovered just by talking out loud was that sensory, like her senses just went out of control. And that feathery touch just was so overwhelming to her that we discovered that she needed more deep pressure touch. She needed him to hold and squeeze her hand, grab her, give her hearty hugs, things like that were opposite from what he was trying to do. Yeah. And it was believe it or not, it was a quick fix. All of a sudden, she couldn't wait to be touched by her husband because it felt much safer after that. So it could be little things that are non-sexual touch and adjustments that you can make. Also, I know this sounds more sexual, but I can't tell you how many couples have found breakthrough just by taking showers together. Yeah. It doesn't have to be sexual, but it can be warm and inviting and gentle. You take turns bathing each other, attending to each other, taking care of each other's needs in a way that's not demanding. Yeah. Showering is a great way to engage each other that way.
Yeah, and the point is to be, be creative, right? Mm-hmm. Don't just take something that we said or something that you see on Instagram or wherever. Yeah. The funniest reels are when a husband or wife sees a reel of some other couple doing something and they're going to go repeat it and it doesn't work out the same. Those are awesome. So It's not so much what everybody else is doing. It really is spending some time and trying things open-handedly so that you can see what makes your spouse tick, right? Yeah. One of the best things that Jenna can do for me is at night we get in bed and she'll take clothes off and nuzzle up to me.
Yeah, I snuggle in.
That works for us, right? Yeah. And there's more than that. But the point is, the Bible talks about touch and different things that we can do as couples. Mm-hmm. It talks about the power of a woman's breasts for their husband. And I've seen this reel, I don't know if there's any science to this, but it talks about how if a man just touches his wife's breasts, that it reduces his cortisol, his stress level, all those things. And again, I don't know if there's science to that. There might be science to that.
Research. You can look it up yourself.
But I definitely know that it's biblical. The Bible talks about that a husband should be satisfied by his wife's breasts. It's
Yeah, there's an
looking at
invitation
them,
there.
touching them. Oftentimes, like just showing off to each other a little bit. Walk around the house naked, preferably the kid's not home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but that goes into non-sexual touch, or again, I've had many moms that come in after having a baby, and our bodies change, right? Pregnancy changes us, and that first few months, especially after having a baby, it's really hard to reconcile with who you are now, with who you were before you had the baby, and you can feel really unattractive. And one of my biggest tips for women is to find ways to show off to your husband that's not demanding sex, right? So for example, blow dry your hair, wash your hair and blow dry your hair naked in the bathroom. There's nothing sexual about that at all, but it's about allowing yourself to become more confident with your own body in a non-sexual way. It's very important that you feel confident, and that can go for both for men and women. If you don't feel confident in yourself, you need to find some different ways to just practice. Practice accepting yourself. Practice being excited about yourself, or at least being vulnerable with yourself.
And here's where we can get off on this. Like we could walk away from listening to this podcast and expect our spouse to just step into this. Listen, there might be some safe conversations that need to happen before your spouse feels comfortable in doing these things.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's oftentimes some reasons why a person doesn't feel comfortable either being naked or kind of that non-sexual touch, different things like that. So have conversations, talk to each other. You know, if something's bothering you, if something's bothering you, be open and honest about it in a safe way. Don't be accusatory. Or if you see your spouse struggling with something, ask them, "Hey, what's going on here? Why do you feel this way?" And again,
and how can I help?
Yes.
Is there anything I can do to apologize or to make amends? Yeah. I had a couple who came in, and she was really struggling with engaging and was very standoffish. And after some time, it came out that when he had drank too much one evening, and when they were intimate, he was very, very rough with her. And it was the first time that ever happened. But she felt so violated by that behavior, and she was embarrassed to talk about it. And when it finally came out in counseling, he was heartbroken. I mean, just devastated. Never, ever had any intention or desire to hurt his wife, so much so that he said, no more alcohol. Never again. And it was healing for them to talk about that and bring those things to light. Those safe conversations in a non-sexual environment have to happen.
And then connect, emotionally connect. If you've got a spouse that is got a lower sex drive, it could be that they need some connection before they're ready to step into sex. And that is probably it's definitely more than just trying to have an emotional connection when you walk into the bedroom door and start taking your clothes off. That is not a great before sex emotional connection. It's probably a day-long thing, texting each other, flirting with each other. I think we've lost the art of flirting with each other. Do a little suggestive text, maybe a little risque, photo that you send to your spouse just to have fun. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know that you are interested in some activities later, right?
Yes.
Great ways to emotionally connect before wanting or asking for sex.
Yeah. I tell couples all the time that foreplay starts when you wake up in the morning at 8:30 in the morning after you have coffee. Foreplay should be happening all day long. Or before.
You can start before.
All day long. It shouldn't just be, it doesn't always have to be just a quickie, like, make this happen. And that can feel really disconnecting if that's the only way that you have intimacy.
You could be like me, and your goal is to wake your wife up with foreplay.
You can totally do that.
Doesn't always work out, though.
Doesn't always. Yes, it takes a little longer for me to wake up.
Occasionally it does. Yeah. But also connect emotionally afterwards. Snuggle time, pillow talk, whatever you want to call it. After you've had sex, don't be in a rush to go shower. Don't be in a rush to go get dressed. Now, sometimes realistically, maybe it's been a quickie and you've got to get to the next thing. Like you're squeezing that thing in between car rides and work and everything else that's going on. And maybe that has to happen. But as much as possible, try to spend some time with each other afterwards.
Yeah. Research shows that women, for the most part, really need and crave and desire emotional connection before having sex. And men open up and are more vulnerable after having sex. How cool is it that God has created us in this beautiful cycle?
Yeah.
And so if you are immediately rolling over after having sex and scrolling on your phone, number one, that can feel really hurtful.
Yeah.
Right? And you can feel used. Like, oh, all he wants me or all she wants me for is sex, because it's not something that you linger in, if that makes sense. And so being able to connect with each other emotionally before and after is incredibly important.
Yeah. So let's get to some practical tips for you guys to really start finding sex, whatever your drive is, a lot more fun, right?
Yeah.
Number one, and this is going to seem very counterintuitive because we think of sex as spontaneous, spur of the moment, romantic. And so it's really, we kind of chalk it over in that category. And if we can't get all those things, then it can't be great sex. But life is busy and life is chaotic. And if it's a priority to you, what do? You schedule it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a doctor's appointment, you schedule it. If you need to spend time with your kids or you have any kind of date that's coming up that's of high priority, you're putting it on the calendar. It's important to you. Why in the world would we say that it's not romantic to schedule and prioritize intimacy with our spouse? That is so absurd and counterintuitive. And I think we should be more engaged and more, proactive about making sure there's time in the week for us to connect.
I have this little code phrase that I send my wife of like, I need to get on your schedule.
Yes.
Right? And she knows what that means. I know what that means. So if somebody else sees that text, it's not a big deal. But it's really just saying, hey, we need to make time. We need to prioritize sex in our marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, we talked about it being that romantic thing, that perfect thing, that thing that the movies portray of, oh, it is that look and
the light
flowers
dim,
and everything. And if you
and the music starts playing.
Yes.
Sex is messy and it's crazy and it doesn't always work out well.
No, we've got the story from early on in our marriage. We were, this may be too much information, but we'll share it anyway. We were visiting our parents and they had this headboard that wasn't attached to the wall, wasn't attached to the bed. So it's kind of freestanding. And it wasn't the most secure thing. And what made it worse was there's this massive, heavy metal cross on top of this thing.
Yeah, just
and we were
sitting
there. And it was late at night, everybody gone to bed, and we were
Having
engaging
sex.
in fun things.
Sexual activities.
And the cross fell off, hit one of us. I can't remember who it hit.
It was awful. It was loud. It was crashing.
Yes.
There was a lot of like crying out in pain.
I don't even remember at this point
if I was so embarrassed.
Well, I don't remember if we continued on or if that just shut everything down. I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it shut everything down. And we were
probably because somebody was injured. I think somebody was injured. But we laughed and it ended up being a great time.
Yeah, we were able
even
to
though
laugh
things
about
were
it.
interrupted. It was fun, and I can't tell you the number of times that we've had those types of experiences in sex, whether it's falling off the bed, somebody slipping, whatever. Yes.
Somebody has a cramp.
Butt cramps. Those happen. Like, why don't they talk about those in the movies, right? I don't know. But it's not perfect. And if you're waiting for sex to be perfect, you're going to be waiting a long time. The point is to just enjoy it. Enjoy each other. Have fun with each other. Next, and this is probably the best advice I can give when it comes to having great sex in your marriage, and that is to pursue your spouse in it. Mm-hmm. Find out what makes them tick, find out the things that they like, the positions that they like, and the things that they don't like, and move towards that. Mm-hmm. Engaging your spouse in sex is a discovery process. No matter what you think you know or what you feel like you've known, your spouse is different than anybody else. different than anything you might have seen, anything that you might have experienced.
Yeah.
And God gives us sex as an invitation to get to know our spouse better. And so, gentlemen, I will tell you, if you want to have great sex and if you want something that your wife is excited about, figure out how to help her to have an orgasm and go for that the first thing every time. It will change the game for you.
It changes the game. And there are many, many women who fake orgasms because they feel like it takes too long and they're embarrassed. But statistically, women take around 20 minutes on average, sometimes more, to have an orgasm. And on the flip side, men take about 4 minutes on average, some more, some less, but take about 4 minutes to climax. And so there's a huge discrepancy even in that. And what an opportunity to spend time with each other, to spend time with her. What is it that's going to bring her to a full climax? And it not be a thing of shame or embarrassment.
Yeah, it really is just trying to figure out each person better and knowing what makes them tick. And so, listen, if this is you guys, if you're watching this today and if this is you guys are finding yourselves in your marriage, one person wants sex more than the other, and it's a tension, right? It's a struggle. It doesn't have to continue to be that way. You guys can sit down, have conversations with each other, talk about it, pursue each other, find out what each person enjoys and value them for that. And it can be an amazing thing. You don't have to stay stuck in this situation. And listen, if you're struggling with this and it doesn't seem like you guys can make that headway on your own, bring somebody else into that conversation.
Absolutely. Counseling may be the answer, just so that you can start having some conversations out loud. If you feel like you can't talk about these things at home without getting hurt or without it escalating into tension, bitter, resentment, angry, explosive arguments, oh my goodness, set it aside and find yourself a mentor, a discipler, a counselor that can be that mediator to help you work through some of these things. It is so important for you to have a healthy sex life, because what we have found over and over again is if you come in, and most people come into counseling because they can't communicate. We have found over and over again that if a couple comes in with communication issues, we don't know how to talk to each other, we're asking, okay, well, when was the last time you had sex and how was it? Because over and over again, we find that if sex is not on the table or if there's a lot of tension and resentment there, then it spills out into every other area of your marriage and communication breaks down and it's really difficult to tackle.
Well, so that wraps it up for today. Listen, we want to invite you, if you have any questions about sex drive, anything like that, or even other questions about marriage, we would love to answer those on this podcast. And so if you will, either direct message us or drop it in the comments, whatever your question is. And we would love to jump into that. If you're not following us on social media, follow us, subscribe to this, and we kick out something every week. And so we'll see you guys next week. This has been This is Life with Tim and Jenna. We look forward to seeing you guys next week.
You in the checkout line when the coupons fail and the card declines, when the kids are screaming and the car won't steer, and I'm one small inconvenience from a breakdown in here. Yeah, I'd still pick you. You're my steady north, my Jedi.